and this tutorial is how to make this bordered chevron friendship bracelet. I don't have a pattern for this one, it's just really simple and straightforward, especially if you've made a chevron friendship bracelet before. If you've never made any kind of bracelet before, you should check out my video on how to tie the 4 types of knots, and perhaps practice doing a candy stripe or regular chevron bracelet before you try this one. First, I've selected my colors that I'm going to do the stripes in, and I've got 3 different shades of orange, and then I've got this green that's going to be my border color. I'm doing kind of an autumn motif. So I will cut each of my strings, one of each color, to 65 inches, and then fold them over and tie them in a loop. If you want your bracelet to be wider, you can simply add more colors or more strings, or you can do 2 of each color and then double them up so it'll be a wider bracelet, but it will still have the same number of colors. You can really do whatever you want, just as long as you keep your outside strings in the right place. So since I folded over my 65-inch strings in half, I am going to have twice as many strings that are half the length. So this is going to be my outside color, my green, so I'm going to have that string on the very outside, and then this is the same string, and this is the same string, and this is the same string, and I want to make sure I set them up in a mirror order, otherwise my chevron won't look quite right, and it will really just be disjointed lines instead of a whole bunch of chevrons of the right color. So I'm going to start doing my outside strings first. I'm going to work on the left, and I'm going to do a forward-backward knot. Then on the far right, I'm going to do a backward-forward knot. And by doing this, it's going to keep the strings from switching places. If I were to do just a backward knot or just a forward knot, these 2 strings would end up switching places when I did the knot. But by doing the backward-forward and forward-backward, they end up staying in the exact same place. And next I am just going to take my outside strings and do my first lines. So I'm going to take my left strings and I'm going to tie on to both of the other strings on the left side with forward knots. So there's my first forward knot and my second forward knot. So now the string that I just did my knots with is in the very center. And I'm going to do the same thing on the right, but I'm going to do backward knots. So I'm going to tie on with my second outermost string. I'm going to do 2 backward knots. There's 1. And there's 2. And now the 2 strings that I just tied knots with are in the very center of my bracelet, and I'll connect them to each other with a forward knot. And this completes my first row of my chevron. Now for the second row, I'm going to do the same thing with my 2 outermost strings. On the left, I'm going to do a forward-backward. That's done. And on the right, a backward-forward. And those are just going to keep staying on the outside like that. Now I'll do my next row. And you want to make sure that you keep your strings in the correct order, otherwise everything's going to get goofy. So they look like that. Now on the left, I'm going to take that second string, the second outermost string, and do 2 forward knots over the 2 strings on the left. And on the right, I'm going to grab my second outermost string and do 2 backward knots. And I'll connect those two in the center with one forward knot. And that's coming along nicely. And for my third row, I'm going to do the same thing. Starting with my two outermost strings, I'm going to do a forward, backward, and then a backward, forward. Those strings don't switch places, they just stay on the outside. And on the left, I'm going to grab that second outermost string and do my two forward knots. There's one. And two. And on the right, I'll do the same thing. Backward knots. There's one. And two. And then I will join them in the center with a forward knot. There you go. So as you can see, if you've ever done a regular chevron bracelet, this bracelet is pretty much the exact same thing, except before I do my regular chevron, I am doing my forward backward knot here on the left, and then my backward forward knot on the right. Oops. Not flipped over. There we go. And because they're backward, forward, and forward, backward, and not a regular forward or regular backward, the strings aren't going to be joined in with the rest of the chevron, and they're just going to border my bracelet all the way down. Now, if you wanted to do a bordered chevron that also had that bordered color included in the chevron, then you would simply add one more string in the same color as your outer color and just integrate it the same way you're using all of these strings, and that will give you the exact same effect. So it's a really simple, straightforward bracelet. It just looks complicated. And you'll just keep repeating those steps until your bracelet is as long as you want it. When your bracelet is as long as you want it, just do two more of your border colored knots. Then separate your strings into two sections and tie them off. And then braid each section and finish it off with a knot. Then trim the excess. And that is your finished bracelet. Happy birthday to you.